uh, very similar structure to me. Raya and Pope as keepers, Diaz, Gabriel, Gvardiol, Burn, and Concert as his back five defenders. Salah, Semenyo, Saka, Sarr, and Rogers as midfield five. Isak, Mateta, Mamouche as the forwards, which is very much the template kind of starting line, give or take. Some people might have gone Evan Nilsson as well for those wildcard. I think Dave was always planning to wildcard ahead of me just because of his chip strategy, right? So he's got the assistant manager chip and the bench boost still, and a free hit kind of still remaining. He wants to use the assistant manager for game week 32 and 33, right? So it kind of logically meant that game week 30 was an excellent time to kind of like play that. So you can play it 31, 32, 33, and then can play the free hit in 34. So he was always going to play the wild card in 30. And I think he kind of like, I'm speaking on his behalf now, always felt like his squad was due a refresh, right? So pretty well set up squad. And I think we can anticipate who his assistant manager is going to be, right? And I think it makes a hell of a lot of sense. He's only got two Palace boys there, Sarr and Mateta, which means that Glasner is going to be coming in next week, I'm pretty sure, as assistant manager, have him for the single week in game week 31, and then keep him for the two lots of doubles in 32 and 33, whilst kind of like holding free transfers rather than wasting moving assistant manager. So I think with Davey, he's got a very similar team structure to myself, but was planning wildcard ahead of me, and like his real chip strategy really did dictate it. For myself, I've used assistant manager. I've got triple captain, bench booster, free hit left. Now I'll go back to my squad now and just like give a little bit of the logic of some of the picks and kind of what was really motivating me. So I think it's stating the obvious, really. I think there's a couple of teams that target the teams that had doubles. Of course, I want to load up on teams with double game weeks and those with like some nice fixtures in and around it, right? So that logically means that you're going hard on Newcastle players, you're going hard on Palace players, you're going hard on Arsenal players, you're going hard on Man City players, right? So, and I think there's a valid kind of tactic to bring in Villa, but obviously Villa kind of like less certainty on their double. They are now announced for 33, but there's an option for an exit strategy. So like nothing too groundbreaking there in terms of what teams I was targeting. And I think teams doubling in 32, 33, they did have nice fixtures in game week 30 as well, which was an additional reason why to kind of wild card. Now, I think one of the things like outside of assistant manager dictated certain kind of like routes. So kind of like explain Dave's logic there. Those with bench boost left, I think, and wanting to play it in 32 or 33, I think deciding a view, keeping some flexibility, performing a view when you would bench boost 32 or 33 was we really did dictate the structure, right? And this is working around the edges, but like it did, there were a few notable differences I noticed in squads. Seemed like actually amongst like top FPL players, bench boost 32 was more popular. My team is set up for a bench boost in 33. I may live to regret that, but we'll kind of see. Reason why I was targeting bench boost 33 over bench boost game week 32. A couple of reasons. One was there's more teams have double game weeks, right? There's 4 with double game weeks in 33 versus 2 in 32. So that meant that at least some of my players on my bench would have 2 game weeks. So yeah, that's kind of like really basic logic, right? Hey, I just want to have as many players with as maximum amount of games as possible, right? So obviously game week 32, you can have, maximum 6 players with a double game week. In game week 33, you can have 12 players and then some nice players with single game weeks around it, right? So that was the logic I was applying there. Game week 33 is further in the future, right? So I think it gives a bit more flexibility to gather more information, gather free transfers to make things adjustments around the edges, right? And then this is less emphasis on getting your squad right. You can kind of have a few additional chances to amend it. And I think finally, like the thing that really did push me to going down the bench boost 33 route in terms of my wildcard structure was the game week 32 is right in the middle of the Champions League kind of like legs, right? So teams like Villa, teams like Arsenal have got big games in around 32. So there could be some rotation, right? And I think, if you do want, most squads will have some Arsenal players and have some Villa players, right? So I think there is probably just a bigger risk that there could be some rotation for players in game week 32. And, some of these guys, they just got one game, right? They're not doubling, right? So I felt like I could get more fixtures because of the potentially less rotation in game week 33. So that's all the reasons why I landed on kind of 33. I think I'll probably just talk around the pros of the game week 32 bench boost wildcard setup. And I think some of the logic that people were applying. And so obviously here you're going hard on Newcastle, you're going hard on Palace players, so you're probably targeting their keepers as well, like to get those get those kind of like players there. Benefits of the game week 32 wildcard, I think, were there's some teams with some really nice single game week fixtures that week. A lot of people will have a Nottingham Forest player or two as part of that structure. They might have a Bournemouth player who have a favourable single game week fixture, like an Evan Nilsson will be in those squads. You might see a Brighton player or two as well, who've got again a nice a single game week 32 fixture. So I think those are the variants that you see. I think the biggest appeal for game week 32 is that your Newcastle players don't become a problem, right? You just bench in game week 33 and onwards. You just bench them, right? So there's some really nice, accessible, good price point assets, right, for Newcastle that, like, game week 33, you get the double in game week 32, and then it's not a problem. You just put them on your bench in game week 33, and then happy days, you keep them for the rest of the season, right? And you don't have to worry about that. If you're bench boosting in a 33, you'll want three Newcastle players that I've got Murphy, Livramento, and Isak, but you kind of want to move them on for game week 33. Otherwise, you've got a suboptimal game where you're bench boosting a player, right? So to bring that life, Isak is obviously cool. He can score in any game. But Murphy or Livramento, they got Villa away in game week 33. So they could get points, but really that's a single game week fixture against a tough team, right? So I really like that logic that people applied for the game week 32 bench boost structure. And in hindsight, I think I prefer that to the approach I took, where I was blinded by let's get as many people as many game weeks as possible, kind of ignoring the strength of certain game week, certain single game week games in 32 and 33. But anyway, here's my setup. So pretty template. Let me talk about like some of the logic of the players and the decisions that I made. So, um, goalkeepers, Raya, best defense, cheapest nailed on option to get into that Arsenal kind of squad, right? I'll kind of be using him as a set and forget keeper for the year for the seasons. That's really good. I went Areola partly because of price point, cheapest starting keeper, and also West Ham. Their defense has been a lot more secure recently in terms of expected goals conceded, and another nice thing is that I'll be benching Boost and Areola, and I do love a double game week goalkeeper. However, he's playing Southampton like in game week 33 when I'm playing as a bench boost. So I think he's a cheap option. I just can keep there and don't have to worry about it. Yeah, and he's playing a kind of like quite an easy game in 33. So we'll see what happens there. But that was the logic behind the keepers. I think obviously alternative strategies would be, I could have got Edison. I could have brought in a Pope, a Henderson, right? These are all kind of great options that were like, kind of like other template picks. Defenders. Now, defenders. I went Guardiola, Gabriel, Munoz. Obviously, Gabriel, pretty much everyone went to him. He's now out for the season, but I think everyone would have gone for him just because of, nailed on this in terms of the best defense and his like strong attacking kind of like presence. So people who went without him and went, I don't know, Timber was a cheaper option. I think they got a little bit lucky, but yeah, Gabriel was just like a bit of a no-brainer for me. I was considering Arsenal double defense. I did have Saliba in a lot of my drafts instead of Munoz, so big at the back for sure. However, just before we pulled the wild card, I think Saka was announced that he's back in the squad and kind of whatnot. Not necessarily starting. He didn't start. Obviously, did come on and get a goal and 2 bonus. But like I did want that flexibility around potentially bringing in Saka like for game week 33, if not before. So decided not to go against the defense. But Gabriel was super obvious. I felt Guardiola was super obvious as well. It looks like he's playing centre back now, but like there will be games where he hopefully plays as left winger. I think again he's like nice fixtures for Man City between now and the end of the season. He's nailed on as a defender. I felt like he was a bit of a non-negotiable. Munoz was a bit. I was playing around with the three Palace players. I could have gone Munoz, Sarr, and Eze rather than having Mateta. I could have gone Mateta, Sarr, Eze, and not skipped their defense. I could have had Henderson and the two midfielders. There was a nice selection of players there. I went Munoz just because it fitted my end structure nicely. He's super attacking, nailed. I thought I was expecting some returns actually, maybe naively against Southampton this week in game week 30. But Munoz, he's a nice option. Livramento and Konsa went them because of the upcoming doubles in game week 30. And I think with Munoz, there's games I'd be quite comfortable benching him, right? And vice versa, like Vardiol, so I'm quite comfortable benching Munoz. I was quite happy benching him game week 31 and whatnot. So I felt like the rotations worked nicely. Livramento and Konsa, I went with them to target Villa because they got a double in game week 33. Get at least one player I can bench up until game week 33 who's quite nailed when he's fit, of course, but also decent price point, 4.4 entry point into the kind of Villa defense. So I think that not worked nicely structurally. I can bench him up until game week 33 and beyond. Similar to Livramento, right? So I think with the way that Newcastle set up now, I think he's certain for minutes. We'll see if I'll rue that. But he's more price savvy than Trippier or Shaw, right? But Dan Burn was the other option. He's like 4.4. Livramento was 4.5 at the time. Dan Burn he could get banned. I think he's one yellow card or two yellow cards away from a ban and just has no attacking threat. I think Livramento's got a bit more attacking threat and doesn't have that imminent ban looming over him. So that's why I went to Livramento. And again, it fits with the team structure kind of quite nicely. I can bench him most of the time. It was a bit of a moot point now because obviously Gabriel's injured, but like Livramento, I'd be quite happy benching him. Midfield, I think rather template. I can talk about some of the decisions I made. So I've got Murphy, Palmer, Sarr, Salah, Savinho, right? So I went Sarr over Eze just because of price points and underlying data at the moment. So I think we'll see if that was right. I could have easily gone Eze as well, right? To be honest, Salah I went there just because of the captaincy option, game week 30 and 31. I could afford him, right? So I think that was kind of quite standard. I went Palmer over Saka just because I thought Palmer was fit and Saka wasn't. That was true. But Palmer is a placeholder for game week 33. He'll move on to Saka, no doubt, in 33. But I was just thinking Saka's come back from a tremendously long injury. I think his minutes will be managed. Obviously, they were, but he came on and scored. So, hey, well done to people that did pick him. I reckon game week 32 as well as a real rotation risk for Saka because like that's either side of the Champions League games. He has just returned, right? Arsenal, like in the league, they pretty much got second place wrapped up, right? So I reckon they could rest players in game week 32. So I think there could be a little bit of rotation. That's why I went Palmer. And I think Palmer's got some very nice fixtures. He had Spurs. He's got Ipswich next, I believe. So he's got some nice fixtures, right? Murphy, again, I wanted to load up on Newcastle players and Gordon's just come back from injury. He's suspended, but also coming back from injury. Murphy has played every single game since game week 14, right? He's got loads of assists, super accessible price point, and he was acting as a bit of a placeholder for me for Rodgers potentially, or maybe a Rashford, who knows, right? To move to a Villa player for game week 33 when Villa double and Newcastle don't. So Murphy, good underlying stats, really cheap price point. I think he's certainty with minutes, so fit with my team structure nice, and I've got a plan to move him on when I need to. Savinho was the wild card option, really. Like, obviously he's got 9 points, so I can't be too proud. Like, as in, if he, I just needed it. I wanted a Man City player. I wanted 3 Man City players for Leicester, and I want 3 for game week 30. They can be benched, right? This midfielder can be benched game week 31 and 32, right? So I just thought Edison was a bit boring and is obviously quite expensive versus like an Areola. Savinho, I did this in the last 10 minutes before the deadline, bringing him in. It was like looking at what other options could I fit, and I was really struggling to bring in a third City. Diaz, I was kind of concerned on his minutes. Edison, I was kind of concerned about his minutes, but also like super expensive price point. I really did want to. I was like, a midfield would be amazing, and I just went Savinho because his underlying is cheap, right? 6.2. But to be honest, if I could afforded Eze was 6.8. If I could go Eze and Diaz over Savinho and Munoz, I would have done that for sure, just because of minute certainty. But yeah, Savinho, cheap, 6.2 mil. Good underlying stats when he does start. So I think it's XGI for the year is like 0.6. So yeah, pretty solid, right? But actually very, very good. Um, and then when he has been fit, he has more often than not been the starter, right? So his minutes are okay when he's starting. Now it's a bit of a rotation risk, really, but I think he's a better player than a lot of the other players as well. Honestly, I know that midfield is packed, right? But you've got Foden, you've got Grealish, you've got Doku, you've got Bernardo Silva, you've got KDB. Savinho on the right wing, I think he's the best option there. It's him or Foden, right? And Foden doesn't really or Bernardo Silva. But I think for the easier teams where I want him to be playing, I think he's a bit of a pump. But yeah, we'll see what happens game week 31, 31, 32. And like, I won't be too proud to move him on for a hit if need be. But like, a bit of a punt. But I think people who picked Foden, it was just as much of a punt, if not more so. Savinho's been more nailed than Foden when they've both been fit. Right. So let's do that. And yeah, the starting line is it kind of picked itself. Mateta coming off early was a bit of a concern because of obviously the head injury he had a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, Mamouche, Mateta, Isak generally does seem to be the template. Mamouche and Isak for me certainly were non-negotiables. Mateta, if I didn't go Mateta, I would have gone Evan Nilsson probably. So Bournemouth's nice fixtures. He's a good player as well. Good price point. But yeah, I wanted to maximize my number of double game weeks, right? So a bit of a childish kind of reason, but I think it's pretty template. So yeah, that was the logic, right? So I think quite template outside of Savinho, and Savinho was kind of dictated by my budget. I would have gone Eze and Diaz if I could have afforded that option. Savinho looked. He's involved. He's a bit of a punt. So I think everyone else is in that team is pretty template and straightforward. So there's some decisions around the edges. Yeah, I didn't pick. I could have picked Rodgers instead of Savinho. Started Murphy. I didn't. I've got a plan to bring in Rodgers. Palmer could have been Saka. I didn't want to risk it. I've got a plan to bring in Saka. So I think quite a standard setup really. And going ahead to game week 33. Gabriel being injured doesn't help my plans now. So that's the risk when I was baking in transfers like Palmer to Saka, but it is what it is. But yeah, I should have Saka for Palmer. I should have someone for Gabriel. That could be a Timber or Saliba, or it could be someone else. I should have. I can move Isak to Watkins, for example. I could move Murphy to Rodgers. I can move Murphy to Rashford potentially if I save money elsewhere. So that does mean I've got a fairly stacked team for double game week 33. I should have, the single game weekers would be Areola against Southampton on my bench. Might be Livramento. Single game weekends available. Whatever, that's fine. And then, I should have like two other doublers on my bench. So yeah, looking pretty good. Game week 30, how it went, like it's kind of boring. I got almost a grey arrow, so I'm sitting around 250k rank at the moment, 52 points, which is better than most on Wildcard, really driven by Savinho. Obviously Gabriel got injured. Raya conceded a deflected shot 4 minutes after into injury time. Palace very disappointing. We'll see if they're one to watch or whatnot. But I think they're a bit of a necessity anyway, so it is what it is. Man City, like Rabiot was looking good. Palmer was looking good. Savino, of course, and Mamouche got their kind of returns. I think it's kind of a standard week, so I won't dwell on it too much. Just going to bring up Dave's team here. So yeah, literally you can see how embedded the template is. So yeah, 51 points, very similar kind of story to me. He went Ruben Diaz and Guardiola, so I do really like that. That's a cool defense. Man City have been looking defensively strong, I have to say. So I think he's played a blinder there, and he doesn't have to worry about the rotation risk. Who knows? Another defense centre back could. They do have a wealth of centre backs and a few potentially coming back as well. So we'll see if Diaz becomes a rotation risk. But that's a nice foundation there. Yeah, very similar story. Like Dave obviously went. He kept the Bournemouth midfield Semenyo because I think he liked the short term fixtures and how to play around. He did bench Rodgers, but I think no one was really. You wouldn't bench any of those players for kind of Rodgers given the fixture. So I think I'm sure he won't be too frustrated with that. He started with Saka, so I think interesting there. Dave is one free transfer ahead of those that went for Palmer. We'll see by 33 whether that works out. But yeah, he's like 2 points ahead of Palmer in terms of the points kind of scored. 8 points versus 6, of course, for Palmer. Saka got the 8. And he's probably like 4 points ahead as well if you add in like the needs for transfers. So yeah, I think like pretty cool. And then moving forward to next week. I will be doing back to my team. And sorry that it's amateur hour here. You can see like who brings the graphics and the technical ability. But my team I'm going to roll. Of course, I could move Gabriel to like Saliba, but I don't need to force it. Livramento and Concert are fine to start, so I will be rolling. I will probably be captaining Salah, but I think that's debate to say if Isak is fit. I think it just seems to be like a niggle rather than a proper injury. He's a valid captaincy option away to Leicester, given how bad they are. Dave's team, we've already mentioned that he's going to be bringing in Glasner. I am pretty sure of it. So yeah, he's well set up again. He can start Burn, Diaz, and Guardiola as a nice defensive kind of like team, and like probably the rest of the starting lineup is the same. So yeah, pretty straightforward. But like it'd be really interesting to see if it's Glasner for Palace as the assistant manager. It'd be interesting if he activates the chip full stop because comes off. I think you want to kind of start off well, right? They can like assistant manager chip. And I think looking at teams at the moment, I'm just ahead of Dave at the moment. So his total points are where is he in terms of rank? He's 10K, right? So he's on 1,971 points, which is 8 points behind me. So like those ranks are really bunched up at the moment. So he's pretty advantaged Dave at the moment. Because he hasn't played assistant manager chip, and we know it's very powerful. And I think he was one of the ones that triple captained Salah for like 28, 29 kind of points, which is crazy. I've got a choice to make as well with triple captain. I do like the 2 home fixtures that Newcastle have in game week 32. So Isak, I am eyeing him up potentially. Palace and United, I think those are nice games for him. Or I do have the option to defer it until a double game week in 36, 37. I guess the appeal there is a bit of a psychological play, right? Because like you've got that in your back pocket, and it could be a Man City player. It could be Mamouche, who's looked excellent since coming into Man City, or it could be Haaland if he's back. So I think I've got an option decision there. But I think that covers kind of the key bits, right? So yeah, big takeaways are both wildcards activated. Dave had to do it just because of his assistant manager kind of strategy. I think his structure is looking very, very nice. I was kind of forced to do it because of injury and just like team structure. And I've gone down a strategy of bench boosting in 33, which does look a bit suboptimal. I do like a lot of the teams that are really targeting 32 and then sitting with those Newcastle players, not burning free transfers to move Newcastle to Villa and whatnot. That's a nice little setup. We'll see. We'll see. I'm sad. I'm a lot of people are frustrated. Oh, Arsenal conceded. Gabriel's injured. I'm glad I played the wild card. I'm happy with my structure as well. So yeah, it's kind of like looking exciting for next week. Is the lull before the storm. But yeah, we will both be together next week. We haven't decided what day we're going to do it, but we'll be back to normal running order. But yeah, good luck for the weekend. Good luck for game week 31, and we shall speak soon. Thank you everyone for listening and watching.